I've told you all about my friends Pat and Charlie that I worked with for 4 years. And one of the things that used to happen while we were driving to lunch every day was that if someone would cut him off in traffic, Pat Job would say, "Oh, bless his heart. I bet he just got out of the hospital." It diffused the tension of the situation. When you make up a story about why somebody's doing what they're doing, or when you know the story of why somebody's doing what they're doing, then you can look at their actions through a different lens. And perhaps it will wake up some understanding and compassion in you. You see that you tell yourself stories about why things happen the way they do. Some people will get sick and they'll say, "God is punishing me." Or they'll be ignored by a friend and they'll say, "That person doesn't like me anymore." Or someone will answer one of their posts on Facebook in a mean kind of way and they'll go, "What did I ever do to them?" And you start going over your interactions with them to try to figure out what it was that they could be reacting so strongly to. And you remember the wisdom of all the great spiritual teachers who say, don't take anything personally. But you know, when it happens to you, it kind of feels personal. And then if you find out what's been going on in their lives and that they just had a sick kid, or they had a bad diagnosis, or they've lost their job, you can understand a little bit more about why they may have answered you that way. And it really didn't have anything to do with you. It really wasn't personal. Reminds me of one of my favorite bumper stickers, which says, "Only 1/8 billionth of this is about you." I think that knowing another person's story, which leads to understanding, is so precious. One of the things I love about this ministry that I do here is that I get to hear your stories, and it feels like treasure to me. It feels like such an honor to have those stories shared and to be able to listen to those stories. Like most of you, I was watching the Democratic convention this week, and just to hear Kamala Harris tell her story of her life, and to hear Jill Biden tell the story of coming into this family of a man and his 2 children who were so hurt, loving them and being a family with them. To hear Joe Biden talk about the sorrows that he's been through, the losses that the whole family has been through together, really warmed my heart and gave them depth as people to me. Hearing the stories of other people's lives enriches us, and we enrich them by telling them our story as much as we want to tell. It doesn't have to be everything, but telling your story is a gift. So one of the things that one of my favorite writers says, Clarissa Pinkola Estes, I quote her pretty often. She says, one of the most calming and powerful actions you can take in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can take in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Today I'm talking about stories and listening in the context of talking about our small group ministry, our Chalice Circles, where we can have deeper conversations with up to 12 people, between 4 and 12 people, for a year. Deeper conversations than we can have with one another, even when we are together at church or when we're at the Zoom coffee hour after the service. The Chalice Circles will be meeting on Zoom this year, which is what we're all getting used to. One of the things our drop-in Zoom groups do is share stories. On Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 12, we have a drop-in in the church Zoom room, which you can find in the Friday electronic newsletter. And I usually have a focus question that we talk about, and we've talked about our growing up, we've talked about our first cars, we've talked about movies that shaped our lives, books that we adore, things that we give away. We've talked about our nicknames when we were little. That was a rich conversation, and I really enjoyed hearing about people's nicknames and their lives. But Chalice Circles are a more structured small group discussion than that. You have a topic, and then there are readings about the topic, and then you have questions that you can choose from among to talk about during your time to talk. And the rule is that each person gets a time to talk if they want it, and there's no crosstalk. What's that? Well, crosstalk is when somebody's supposed to be listening to you, but instead of really, really listening and being present with you, they say, oh, that reminds me of that time it happened to me too. All you have to do is get pregnant, and you'll hear everybody's pregnancy stories. All you have to do is start a new job, and you'll hear everybody's starting a new job stories. It's very, very rare to be listened to without crosstalk. So you're listened to for a period of time, and then there's a facilitator in the group who helps people share the time. Here's some examples. I wrote a topic on anxiety. I wrote a lesson for the Chalice Circles a few years ago, and here are some of the readings from Anais Nin. Anxiety is love's greatest killer. It makes others feel as you might when a drowning man holds on to you. You want to save him, but you know he will strangle you with his panic. Corrie ten Boom says, worrying is carrying tomorrow's load with today's strength, carrying 2 days at once. It is moving into tomorrow ahead of time. Worrying doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. I think it was Mark Twain who said, I've worried about a lot of problems in my time, some of which actually happened. I give everybody, or right now, our Soul Matters curriculum gives everybody the readings and the questions. Here are some of the questions from the anxiety lesson. 1, how do you handle anxiety? 2, do you find that once you've survived a mistake, you're less worried about it happening again? 3, do you worry more about your life or about whether everyone around you is okay? So you get to talk with a bunch of people about whichever one of these questions they'd like to ask. And all you say at the end of their time talking is, thank you. The rule is no crosstalk and no advice. Oh man, that's a hard one. After everyone's had their time to talk, then you have a time of quiet. And after that, the discussion can start. So you can say, when you said this, what did you mean? Or, I have a piece of advice about that, but I know I'm not allowed to give it to you now. So if you want to talk after the meeting, just if you want to, I have some advice about that. And then let them not ask for it if they don't want to ask for it. Sometimes people don't even want advice when they ask for it. It's the weirdest thing. Maybe that's just me. So when you meet with this small group of people for a year, you find that suddenly there are people from church that you get to know that you might not have gotten to know otherwise. And that your affection for other church people grows more specific, more particular, and you can like certain things about certain people or have your heart moved by knowing just when you see them in church, the things they've gone through. And you get to practice listening and understanding. Listening is hard. That's the reason for the no crosstalk. That's the reason for the no advice. It's listening practice. Listening means that you're present with the person while they're talking. You're not thinking about what you want to say after they finish talking. You really are hearing what they're saying. And when a thought of yours comes in like, ooh, that happened to me one time, I really want to talk about that, just put it to one side and stay with them. because their experience is different from your experience. It's not the same thing, and you can shut a person down by responding with a story of yours. Now, casual conversation, it's fine to do that. It's fine to interrupt, crosstalk, advice. Casual conversation is all about that. But when you're doing a deep listening, that's what you do. You listen, and you put your own experiences aside and even your own opinions aside, and you really try to understand what the person is saying. Now, in order for this to happen in a Chalice Circle situation, you need, as I said before, you need a facilitator. Who is that? Well, a facilitator is someone volunteering from the congregation to have the ministry of being like the conductor of this orchestra of stories. You say, now it's time for the flutes to play. Now it's time for the strings to play. Okay, brass, you are loud and insistent, and I need you to back off just a little bit. You are the conductor if you are the facilitator. We don't expect anybody to know how to do this naturally. We give you as best a training as we can give you. And then Chris and I would be available if you have questions or need support in your job as facilitator. It's a pretty important ministry in this congregation to be a facilitator of these small group conversations. And so I want to send out an appeal. If you feel a call to this ministry of facilitation, please email me. My email is on the website. And let me know that you would like to facilitate one of these Chalice Circle groups, and we'll get you trained up. Now, when will signups for the group start? Probably in a few weeks. It'll depend on how many facilitators we get and how quickly they let me know that they are feeling called to be facilitators. We're going to get it going, we hope, by the end of September, early October, and that's when the first meetings will be. September's theme is renewal, and we would love to start groups in September with that theme because it just feels so appropriate. I really hope that you'll consider signing up for one of these groups, and I hope that you'll consider volunteering to be a facilitator. We would love to have you do that in our congregation. So being able to tell your story and feel other people listen to your story and see their faces as they listen to your story, and then being able to listen to their story and have them be listened into healing and wholeness by your ear and your compassionate presence is quite a wonderful thing. It's one of the things that church is about. It's a nourishment of souls, and it can be a transformation of lives, and it can even be a building of our understanding of justice. I would like to close with a beautiful image from fantasy writer Laini Taylor. He listened like a cactus drinks the rain. He listened like a cactus drinks the rain. Let's listen to one another that way from time to time. May it be so.